Hey everybody, I'm super excited to have my good friend Geoff Weers here today. You might know him as one of the founding members and guitar players for and singers for an awesome band called the Expendables, but he's got so much more going on in his life, and we're excited to hear the story of how it all started, what he's up to now, and what's next. So, Geoff, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me, Jordan. It's exciting to be here.
We had some technical difficulties before, but I'm glad we took a few minutes to kind of get things squared away. So hopefully everything's good moving forward. But again, man, thank you so much for your time. You are a local legend. A lot of people appreciate all the work that you guys have done over the last, gosh, 20 something years. And it's crazy to think that
Yeah,
we're
it's 25 years.
talking in decades now, which is
Yeah.
crazy. But tell us how it all got started. Where are you from originally, and kind of how you and the guys got together, and kind of take it from there.
All right. Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. And so yeah, from back in the day, yeah, like I said, it's 25 years in the making, Expendables, being in a band. We started in high school. We went to SoCal High here
Nice.
in Santa Cruz. I've grown up in Santa Cruz most of my life. I moved here when I was super young from San Jose, probably like 4 years old is when we got here. Um, and so yeah, we got together in high school. I've known Adam and Raul, our guitar player and drummer, since junior high, and then actually me and Adam go way back further to Little League, Farm League baseball. We were on the same farm team a long time ago. So just I've known these guys from being in town over the years.
Yeah.
In high school, um, I joined the jazz band and was doing my own music thing. I was playing guitar in the jazz band, and Adam and Raul had started a band, or they got together. Raul and I kind of started learning guitar together at the same time in junior high, but Adam and Raul are really close friends.
Ah,
They
okay.
kind of started this thing, and they were just friends playing music and having fun with another friend, Cam, who was also in the Expendables, but left the band in 2000 or something, a long, long time ago. But at a friend's house, it was a birthday party, I think 16th or 17th birthday party, high school days, so
What
long
high school
ago.
class were you guys?
Class of 99.
Yeah. Okay. So I was a freshman when you guys were seniors. That's
Okay.
about what I thought. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, we started in the 90s,
Yeah.
which is wild. Um,
1900s, they say now.
oh my God,
Yeah.
asshole
Right.
kids. Um, yeah, so at a party they were playing and they couldn't figure out a name, and they would call themselves, I think there was a few names going around, like Eternal Boner, I think was one of the names. Um,
This is before Viagra.
I guess so.
You would have had a great sponsor lined up.
Yeah, right. Uh, but they would always joke with each other saying that they were expendable because they had just all started playing music, all started kind of with their instruments. And so they're all learning and they joke with each other. Oh, you're the expendable one. Oh, you're the expendable one. And I was like, guys, you guys should be called the Expendables. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. You want to be in the band too? And so at that party, the Expendables name was born, and
That's awesome.
I was asked to join the band, and we would jam around. And before I entered, they were kind of playing house parties, like an aunt's birthday party playing
Yeah.
cover tunes, you know, backyard tiny little things. And so when I joined, we kind of kept doing that and kept playing the same type of music. We play like Johnny B. Good, Wipeout, like old, rock and roll tunes.
Yeah.
Um, and just it developed from there.
How
Um,
did you make that transition from like playing at school in the jazz band to playing now in like a local rock band, like backyard parties? Just like
um,
stylistically.
it it was pretty easy because like jazz band was a great place. I mean, I can't say enough about being able to be in that band because we had to, being in jazz band, you had to wake up at 7 in the morning and be at class by, I think it was 7 o'clock or something, Monday,
Dedication.
Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah.
And you had like X period and the other period. So it was like an hour and a half of jamming in the morning every morning and having the band teacher learning how to read charts and just playing that much that early for kind of a long period of time throughout my whole high school career really taught me a lot about being in a band, listening, chord structure, song
Mm.
structure. arrangements, all that stuff I was absorbing, not really noticing. But so it made the transition really easy to go from that, which was very structured, to having fun with some friends
Yeah.
and playing some random stuff. And so um, it had a lot to do with it. And I'm just
One
grateful
thing
for
I see kind of lost currently with,
that.
kind of the instant gratification, social media, microwave generation that we're in is, I had a interviewed a couple weeks ago my friend Art, who's been a coach for years, but he talked about how he was an assistant coach for 10 years before he got his first head coaching gig. And so it kind of correlates to what you're saying, that you were showing up every day early in the morning to band practice, not realizing that it was preparing you to be a rock star. You
Yeah.
probably didn't feel that way when you were, early
No, no.
mornings. People don't realize when you grow up here on the coast, like it's cold and misty and foggy, and you're waiting for the bus.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway, but that was preparing you for, you know,
It was preparing me for a lot. And plus, I mean, even rewind further back, my parents put me into theater when I was a real small kid, between the ages of, I would say like fifth, no, even like fourth or third grade till I can't remember, like seventh grade or something
wow,
like that, sixth grade. I was in Santa Cruz Junior Theater. And so there was a lot
that's
of
so cool.
ground built, groundwork laid in being comfortable on stage and performance and all that aspect, like being on stage was second nature to me once we started doing the band stuff. Like it really,
It's interesting. I see a real interest in a lot of the younger generation wanting to be on YouTube or wanting to be on TikTok or even wanting to be in music, but some of them not having those traditional skills like band or theater, which
mm,
really prepare you for stage presence or just, being comfortable in front of a crowd or understanding how to work as a team or a band. That's really interesting that was kind of your foundation. I'm sure not a lot of people know that, right? A lot of folks, it's like, oh, I just was messing around and, we were with buddies and all of a sudden we were in a band, but it's like you actually had the more traditional training that kind of
yeah.
led, and it shows in your skills, it shows in your stage presence, and that's kind of what has separated you guys from a lot of other bands. What who are some of those early influences? I know you said you were doing some like rock and roll covers at first, but then as you got a little older, what was some of the music that influenced you guys, would you say?
Definitely a lot of guitar playing stuff. So I started playing guitar before I started singing, or like, I guess I could sing, but I didn't really think about singing as being kind of something to work on, something to like a skill. I just thought you just sang. So for a long time, it was like really like my interest in guitar. So early on, I was into Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, all the classic rock, ripping, shredding stuff, all the way up into, Metallica and Pantera. Those were my two, favorite metal bands. And so all the guitar work and all those things, a lot of the shredder stuff, like Yngwie Malmsteen style things, just even some Dick Dale, like when Dick Dale got really big during that time, when Pulp Fiction came out, the soundtrack
Yeah,
really pumped Dick Dale. So early Expendable stuff was really a lot of surf music too.
yeah,
And we were heavily influenced by that kind of resurgence of that music. So a lot of guitar heavy stuff. And
yeah.
Raul and I, our other guitar player, we would kind of geek out on that stuff. And I really, our if you listen to our music, we do a lot of guitar harmonies, and that's like something I totally love. There's nothing like awesome guitar harmonies.
Well, part
For
of what I
my
want to
time.
do, yeah, I agree. And part of what I want to do with this podcast, wherever it goes, and maybe even a documentary, and I've talked to Wes from Revolution about it too, just telling the story of this scene and how it's evolved. Because I think there's a lot of documentaries, there's a lot of history about like, you know, I don't know, pre 90s stuff. And then there's a lot of
Hmm.
kind of digital stuff now and the modern stuff. There's kind of
Hmm.
a gap of telling that story. Those of us that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, I feel like we really were kind of a transition generation of like, we know some of the old school stuff. We remember life before technology. And then
Right.
we kind of grew up
Absolutely.
with it, especially those of us right next to Silicon Valley, right? We really were kind of
Absolutely.
exposed to it early on and had Apple computers in our schools. I mean, freaking Steve Wozniak like donated computers to our school in Prunedale and like
Hmm.
delivered them personally, like stuff like that. And
Well,
those guys lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Steve Jobs is like, it's crazy.
right. Yeah.
Cupertino's right over the hill. So like the influence and the change. But one of those things is just how like, you talk about the surf culture and how it impacted cinema and also music. Think about like Tony Hawk and that soundtrack that came out, right? And then you talk about surf, like Santa Cruz and Huntington Beach fight over that title of Surf City, USA, but
Yeah,
also kind of the skate culture too. And you were mentioning
absolutely.
earlier about Little League. I actually played on a Little League team in Watsonville at Ramsey Park when I was like in first grade, and my coach was Bill from Bill's Wheels. And so you see like the
Yeah,
random connections here in the
absolutely.
831 of between skate and surf and kind of rock and reggae culture, and you guys were like a big part of that. So as you were kind of getting started, and you, not to be cheesy, but you kind of rode that wave, but you guys also
Absolutely.
helped dictate it locally. When was that transition from like, okay, we're messing around in the garage and high school parties to like, oh shit, like we have something here?
I think during like, what was it? Man, my memory is pretty foggy. But during high school, we actually released like, what was it, like two albums, maybe three albums in high school, recorded them at a local studio and just put stuff out. And in high school, that would our little albums would create a little bit of buzz. Like, or like,
Mm,
oh, this is, our high school band's CD. And there was a lot of other good bands, a band called Jet Lag, which was so phenomenal back in high school. I don't know if you ever heard them. I mean, they were a
heard of
good
them, but
band.
never heard of them. Yeah,
They were bad motherfuckers. Like, dude,
nice.
they were so good, like years beyond where we were. And they had such a great sound. I've actually had their CD and like I listened to it because it's great music, great
Yeah.
punk rock, gritty Santa Cruz punk rock. And so there's this already like this bed of really good musicianship in SoCal High.
Hmm.
Um, and that translated to playing at the Catalyst. So I think we were still at SoCal High when we first started playing the Catalyst. And the Catalyst, I tell this story a lot. The Catalyst back in the day had this thing called Thursday Night Showcase.
Nice.
So every Thursday night, it was like a locals night. And they had three bands, and each band was given colored tickets by the Catalyst. I think it was like 200 tickets, maybe. Can't remember how many.
Sing for your
But
supper.
what's that?
Sing for your supper. You had to
Yeah,
sell the tickets. Yeah,
exactly. So like
totally.
either you sell the tickets or give them away. But the Catalyst would judge your band on how many of your tickets came back into that show. And if you were a band that had more tickets come back, then you would have more opportunities to open for other bands, on the bills that they had, for other nights. And we would just give them out to our friends at school. And all those kids would come and they'd be
That's
like,
awesome.
whoa.
Yeah,
Almost every ticket came back. It's unprecedented. Like a lot of times
yeah,
it'd be a handful. Most local bands were struggling to get their friends to come. But our whole high school would be like, dude, let's go.
that's awesome.
And so that really kick-started, I think, our passion, our like kind of opened our eyes to be like, hey, we can do more. And so we ended up being like the opening band for pretty much every reggae show that came through. And then soon after, we graduated high school and everybody that was in our class went to college all over the state and they would have a party. They'd call us up
Yep,
and we'd go play their party. And so we were doing weekend trips to San Luis Obispo, Santa
yep,
Barbara, Fresno, San Diego, LA, all Chico, like all the party schools would have us play and we would just play, play, play. And that was right when Napster was around. So our stuff
yep.
started getting shared around. Speaking of like we're like on this crux of the digital age.
Yes, yes,
And so I don't think our band would have been anything if it wasn't for that Napster revolution. Even though it does suck, like I have a lot of feelings how the digital age
totally.
affected, musicianship up until now, but
Yep.
it really helped us out. Like we even got a call from an A&R representative back in the day who where when A&R representatives from a label were a thing, saying that they were interested in us, but like they heard our record and told us like we don't hear the next Sublime What I Got, so we're not going
Right,
to pass.
right,
So like they're looking for this certain style or this
right.
certain, sound to put on the radio or to invest in, whereas we had like more or less decentralized voting system of of Napster,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right. It
spreading our
changed the
music around.
it changed the game. I mean, a couple, and I understand the mixed feelings about it. A couple things with what you said. One of my one of the bands from our high school who are good friends of mine who opened for you guys around that same time as In Like Sin, right?
Yes.
So shout out to Ted and Luke and the
Yes.
guys and Gordy
Fucking
and Jake and all the guys.
yep.
They were like our hometown heroes, you know, and they were kind of coming up with you guys, and they
Right.
kind of went a different path, like you said. Some bands kind of went this way, some went that way,
Right.
but I got to play with those guys. I was in band class. I was in sports. So I never committed to being in the actual band because at our school, band was like a big deal. And it was like, if you want to be in jazz band, you have to also be in marching band. And I was like, I'm not trying to be a marching band. Like, I just want to play the drums and like hang out, you know?
Right.
And so then I took this guitar class, happened to be taught by the band teacher in the band room. And it was a joke of a class. He didn't teach us anything. But the cool
Right.
part was all the guitar players in school took it. And so
Right.
I was
Right.
hanging out with all the best guitar players in school and learning from them and being their drummer. And so he
Hmm.
would leave us alone and we would just jam in the band room. And then
Right.
the In Like Sin guys would like sneak in on their break and we would have these little parties in the band room.
So
And,
amazing.
you know, so it was cool. And then I remember, speaking of Napster, I was there. It was like the second or third ever X Games in San Francisco on the Embarcadero. Travis Pastrana was like 15 or 16 years old. And
Mm.
Sean Parker was out there handing out stickers and like CDs for Napster.
Wow.
And I remember because
Wow.
I got a sticker and I put it on my guitar at the time that I got in high school.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's just like not knowing what was happening around us, you know.
Absolutely.
The same thing, you're at those parties, you don't realize what it would become. But I love
No.
the story, your guys' story, the organic grind, the like natural evolution of it. And people don't realize like how much, you know, you were lugging your gear up and down the state of
Oh
California.
yeah.
And yeah, it was a party. Yeah, it was fun, but it's a lot of nights sleeping in a parking lot, a lot
Yeah.
of days without doing laundry or having a shower, a
Didn't
lot of
mind it one
bumping on
bit. It
friends'
was so
couches.
freeing. It was the best time ever. It was simpler times.
Yes.
And we all like another thing I think that contributed to our, to our success was like every single one of us was all in,
Yep.
1000% in. There was no, oh, like maybe I'll do this. Like a couple of us went to college and like I lasted 1 year and came back and was like, screw this. Went to school in LA and like failed out because like I wasn't going to class. I was depressed. I was like, I just want to be home playing music with my boys.
Yeah.
And it's because like four dudes with the same goal, with the same amount of focus, you can do anything.
Yep.
And it's like that was what we wanted to do and we made it happen. Like it was like the times where we would meet up before a show, like to promote for a show. We had this house that we lived in and we'd put a map up on the wall and have a pile of flyers and a bunch
Love
of
that.
staplers and we'd circle the areas of town and we'd all split up like you take that area, you take that area, you take that
I
area,
love that.
you take that area, and we'd just go and do it and pepper the town. And there were certain spots all over town where you'd see all the flyers and you'd you'd plaster them up and make sure the show did well because like
Yep.
what else do we have to lose? This is our fucking thing.
No one, you know, one of the things you guys have done that I admire, not only did you build, you know, from ground up organic fan base and tour and do all the things, but from your artwork with like Sean, you really
Yeah.
have created a brand and like if you, the people that love you really love you. You know, it's not just like
Yeah.
a casual thing. It's like because you were the soundtrack to not only your generation, but even you know, the generations that came after of local kids or anyone that was into reggae or cannabis or surfing or
Hmm.
skateboarding. Like Expendables is in the rotation 100%.
For sure.
And so do you remember the first time? Okay, so you guys started doing Catalyst shows, you started hitting a big local. Do you remember the first time where you're like, oh shit, like one of your songs made it somewhere or you got invited to a show that you were just blown away by?
Um, I don't think there's like one real big moment. Like honestly, I feel like our career was just this kind of slow build over time. Like the last year was a little, the year that we're in is had a little bit more going on. I think what really started, we got signed to Silverback management.
Yeah.
That's what turned it from, being a
Shout out to John.
yeah, shout out to John and Matt, and Slightly Stupid.
Yep.
So like back in the day, like when I was saying like we would be the opening band for every band that came through the Catalyst, well, one of the bands was Slightly Stupid.
Yep.
And we were huge fans. Like their Longest Barrel Ride record was a huge influence on me. Like I was almost to an annoying way. I'd always be playing that record whenever I had a chance to play it because it to me is the sound that I really loved. And that's what a lot of those early Expendable stuff was emulating was like the way they did reggae into punk and back into reggae. Like they had these huge, almost like symphonic sort of arrangements where they
Mm,
long, killer reggae song that went into this killer like metal jam and then back into a reggae jam,
yeah.
back, like this whole thing. And I was like, dude, these are like symphonies of reggae rock.
Well,
And
then when you see him live, it's like almost kind of Grateful Dead esque, where it's just like a jam for like
yeah, I
15
mean
minutes
they've
for one
developed
song.
into that. They've
Yeah.
developed into that. But before they were like a ska punk band.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like the answer, like so, Bradley Nowell dies and there's this huge vacuum for this sound.
Totally.
And
Well, they were mentored by him, right?
yeah. And so when, Long Beach Dub All Stars kind of filled
Hmm.
that gap for a little bit, but then Adam went to one of the, I think it was Palookaville, which is a small venue in town that's no
Yep.
longer, um, and went to go see Long Beach Dub, and opening for them was Slightly Stupid. And Adam gets the CD and he's like, guys, you guys got to check this out.
I love it.
And so he pops it in and it's this sick shit. And we're like, whoa. And then they come out with their Longest Barrel Ride. We're like, what is this? And so when they come to town, we open for them. We're like, yes, we have to open. Like, this is the
Yeah.
band we got to open for.
Right.
And so that's how we got on their radar. And then
Because you guys were like reggae metal almost.
well,
You had
that's
some punk as
because of
well.
them, because of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
freaking album. Like we love the metal, but I remember writing a song. Like there's songs that I wrote directly in response to their album.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to make this symphonic reggae jam go into a metal thing and then come back into a reggae song. Like, let's do
Well,
that.
that's why Head in My Hands is one of my favorite songs
Right.
for that reason.
For sure. There's a song called Kronz that does that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we started doing that. I think that's what kind of turned us to our sound. Before was like the cover stuff and like whatever. But then after, our exposure to Stupid and they heavily influenced us, it kind of made us turn
So
into
that
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 direction.
timeline you're talking about, and it was kind of as I was coming out of high school, so early 2000s. A lot of
Yeah,
those folks who like Revolution, those guys, Iration, they were in college at UC Santa Barbara,
correct.
and then you guys and Slightly were kind of, and Pepper were kind of keeping the scene going, taking the
Right,
mantle from Bradley and
right,
Sublime and Long Beach and those guys, and you guys took it to a whole other level.
right.
Talk about like that, how that really started to take off with Silverback and the touring, and what was that like, the first like big national tour that you did?
Bro, it was insane. So yeah, we get ex we start kind of making these albums that sound like Stupid. So we're kind of in this now Cali, that scene. The scene wasn't really anybody. It was like Stupid, Pepper, us,
Right.
and some other skunk bands, Skunk Records, which Sublime was part of back in the day. The Long Beach scene
Yeah.
was still heavily kind of coding everything post Sublime. So like you get these bands that were kind of associated with Sublime through Skunk Records, and then you get these new young bucks like us, and then Hawaii influence like
Yep.
Pepper, and then Slightly Stupid being kind of the direct descendants of Sublime, kind of spearheading it all. And then yeah, and then like Long Beach Dub was kind of part of that Skunk Records thing. So yeah, we started to develop a following, and then Stupid signed us to their record label and we got on Silverback. And that
Nice.
pretty much automatically put us on tour with Stupid. And so we hopped in the van and went on tour with Slightly Stupid for, I can't remember, a few tours.
Yeah.
And that's how the country started to notice who we were. And that was kicked off our professional career. That's pretty much the time I stopped working at the deli I worked at. Shout out to Garden Deli and Liquor.
Yeah.
Here in Santa Cruz, best sandwiches. Um, but I had to quit because I was
Yeah.
gone. I was like, dude, I'm going to be on tour for 3 months.
Yeah, shout out to all the family members and employers who were
Yeah,
flexible with young
dude,
musicians trying to make it.
they were so
Um,
they were so good to me. They were amazing. I still go see them every once in a while. I'm like, you guys have no idea how much, because they would let me work Monday through Thursday. I had
yep,
Friday, Saturday, Sundays off.
yep,
So I had time to play the gigs or whatever I needed to do. And they were like, I would always have a job when I came back. They weren't ever going to be like, oh, you can't work here anymore since you were gone for 3 months. Like,
yeah,
or if you need a job, come on back. But by the time I quit, we were like
yeah.
making enough money for me to sustain myself and all of ourselves and
That's
hold
awesome.
off. And that started. that was what our first tour, I think, was 2007. My memory's so shot, but like around that
It's all
time
good.
is kind of
Yeah.
the transition. And then we've been kind of touring and touring and touring and
And then
touring and
what was the
album,
first
album,
studio
album.
album where you was like fully produced like studio album? Was it after that tour?
Um, well, no, we had a few albums before that. So our first kind of real album was called No Time to Worry. And that was just recorded at the same place had been recording since high school. And it was a cool album. But that was the album that had all these, symphonic kind of
Hmm.
reggae metal ska songs that kind of honed into our sound. Before that, our sound was a little like unknown.
Yeah,
But the No Time to Worry album kind of solidified our sound. And then we put out another record called um, Open Container, and that was funded by winning the Battle of the Bands in Santa Cruz. We got like, I can't remember, 5 grand or
that's
something,
awesome.
10 grand. I can't remember, but that funded that record. So those two records came out before we signed to Stupid Records. And then Stupid Records came, and then we did our self-titled record. Then we did Prove It, and then we did whatever else we've done since then. I can't remember how it goes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us a story. Obviously, you guys are in touring, recording albums, and then in the midst, did you have like a planned out writing process, or was it just kind of organic? One thing I do love about you guys is that you're versatile and that there's different writers, different singers, different, um,
Mhm.
and I play different instruments and I sing, and I've never been maybe at the same level that you guys are at, but I played in different bands, and I just get bored doing one thing, so I like to mix it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love that you guys kind of take turns writing songs, singing songs,
Absolutely.
and love Adam being able to sing from the drums.
Yeah.
That's kind of what made you guys unique. But what was your process in the midst of the momentum, still continuing to write and taking the time for that?
Um, I kind of I forgot about an album. So there was an album called Getting Filthy, which is kind of
Yes,
a so that came in between.
kind of a big one.
Yeah, like whoa. So that was the one that came out. I can't remember how it goes, but that's like the one of the that's the one that really, that's the one that has Bull for Two and Sacrifice on it. Um, but back to your question, our writing, yeah, we just like Ryan and I, our bass player, we used to like just hang out and play acoustics together and come up with the songs. He's a great writer.
Yeah,
He has some really cool songs, like "Head in My Hands" is a Ryan DeMar song. Um, so him and I would get together. It's kind of there's not like one way. I think that is what helps. I think there's not like this kind of one way, and it's evolved even to now. Like, but we would jam again together a lot. So, it was something that we would do all the time, and just get together after work or three,
yeah,
4, 5 times a week. It seemed like, and just be in a room together and feel the feelings of playing and jamming new things. And like someone would be like, "Oh, dude, I got this. Oh, dude, I got that. Let's,"
that's awesome.
like, and um, there was no one way. So you just, however it came out, it would come out, and we would just work on it.
I'm
And
sure everybody
um,
listening has their favorite album or their favorite song, but I would say it's not even my favorite, but I love it. And it's probably maybe what you're most known for. People that aren't even fans of you know the song, and that's Bull for Two, right? Would you
yeah,
say
yeah,
probably?
yeah.
How did that one come about? Like, what was the story behind that?
Like like so Ryan and I would get together. I'd either go to his parents' house. We were like, well after high school, college age, but we were still all living at our parents' houses.
As one does in Santa Cruz County.
Yeah. Um, and so we would just kind of meet up at each other's house, at night, usually, and kind of just smoke a bunch of weed and show each other some little riffs or song ideas. Um, and so I was like, I had this chord progression. I was like, yo, check this out. And so I started playing it. It was the Bull for Two progression, which I was just playing it. And then he was just kind of like sitting there and
Such a legendary riff. Oh, as soon as you hear it, you know what
he
it
was just,
is.
I mean, it was really nothing. And he started singing. pack this bowl for two. And we kind of looked at each other. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was like, okay, whatever. And honestly, that song was not really something we were like, this is gonna be the one. It was just another weed song. It was just another song.
Yeah.
Sacrifice was really the song that was like
Also
everybody was
great.
like, oh, dude, that's the song, man.
Yeah.
Like that's the one if we were gonna push anything to radio, which wasn't a thing back then.
Right.
But that would have been the one, like that would have been the one where we'd be like, oh, whoever, you should listen to this song. Bowl for Two kind of came out of the blue as far as like it became popular. And so after a while it started to gain momentum, and maybe it was because of the streaming era. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure how it seems kind of like a blur to me, like why it got so big. But I remember it just being like, oh, just another song.
It's kind of the smoker's anthem, you know?
It is
Uh,
like I've met people all over the world. I was in Hawaii a few years ago, and we were on this, chartered boat to go do a tour thing, and one of the workers on the boat was like, "Oh, dude, Bowl for Two. That was like the first song I've ever smoked weed to." And like I've heard that a few times. I were kind
yeah.
of a gateway drug song, but
Yeah. For
um,
better, for worse.
yeah, but it's all good. Like,
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I've
It's such a
been,
blessing.
with you guys on different events, whether it was down in, in LA or here in, at Cali Roots or something like that. And to have, 20,000 people singing along with you. I mean,
Yeah, it's
how is
wild.
that? For,
It's insane. And like, we used to be like, oh man, we got to play this every night and kind of get like, "Rah." But
yeah.
now I'm like, dude, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. Like, it is such a privilege. It is such a, like, it's amazing that people want to sing the song, that it affects this many people, that the people that are out there, like, use a song, they put it on to smoke weed to and have a good time to. Like, that's what music is for, is to like escape, to get into this mood that it's hard to find in your everyday life. You put
Yeah.
on music and you settle into whatever thing that you want to feel, and the music helps you do that. And to have a song that's something that we created
Yeah.
come out and do that, it's like it means so much to me. It's hard to even put words on how much it means to me.
Well, you guys,
I know how much it means to people.
yeah, I mean, obviously it means a lot to you, but you have meant a lot to others, and you've been there. I mean, you're the people's wedding songs,
Right.
people's people's
Wow.
smoking songs, people's graduation songs, whatever the
Right.
case may be. And I remember, I've been different shows with you guys over the years, but there's been a couple special moments that some you may remember, some you may not. But I remember, obviously, you helped build the whole scene, right? You Slightly Stupid Pepper really helped carry the torch when Bradley passed and helped make the whole scene become what it is today, right? And so there's been all these other festivals that have popped up across the country. Obviously, Cali Roots is kind of a big one here
Mhm.
locally. It's a homegrown event that evolved, and you guys were a big part of those early years.
Absolutely.
And I remember, but my favorite memory at Cali Roots with you guys was one year, because that's how we first met. Was I was part of the team there, and I would help get the bands, get them from the airport, get their gear, make sure everything was set up and they were where they needed to be. And I remember one year, I don't know why, it was a scheduling thing. There was some, I don't know if it was like a, because they try to shuffle the lineup every couple of years, right? And I think it maybe one of the Jamaican guys couldn't get a visa or something happened like that, and you guys were like a last minute add-on. You've
Mm.
headlined different years and you played different years, but
Mm.
this particular year, you
Hmm.
were like a last minute surprise for some reason. And I
Okay.
think they probably called you like, hey, because you're a local,
Oh,
come
like,
through. And
sure.
so it was a surprise to everyone. I think it was like a Friday night or something. And it was on the Cali Root stage, which is the one behind the tree.
Yep.
And they had like decorated it with like lights and all this.
Yeah.
And I just remember the whole crowd, because it was a surprise. And of course,
Yeah.
everyone's hometown favorite. It was a surprise that you guys showed up and you rocked it. And then
Awesome.
just singing that together,
Yeah.
under the lights, under the stars, and the tree. It was just, that was my favorite show.
Yeah.
And the other one was when we reconnected after that through our mutual friend Randy,
Yeah.
and it was his birthday,
Yeah.
and just kind of random. We had some mutual friends, and he told you the story about how his brother had an accident and was
Mhm.
kind of like paralyzed for a little while and in a coma, and listening to you guys got him
Mhm.
through that time.
Mhm.
I think I want to say
Wow.
maybe 6 months or so he was in the
Yeah.
hospital,
Yeah.
kind of on life support, and their family praying every day. And here you have this, hardworking Mexican Catholic family doing their praying, doing their support, but it was listening to the Expendables that
It's
helped get him through. And
wow.
so Randy and I connected over that. And it was like, wow, this crazy small world. And it worked out for you to show up for his birthday and then for his brother to be there. It was awesome. And then my brother and I were there with you, and Estrella were there. And it was like, oh, let's just
Mhm.
jam. And we're like, oh my God. Even though we were like friends already, it was like, dude, we grew up listening to you guys. So
So
here we are
cool.
just getting to jam with you. And it was like,
Yeah.
dang, full circle. And we
Yeah.
got to jam together with you. And then we got to play there for Randy and his brother, Anthony,
Yeah.
which was just like magical. So to me, those are my two favorite Expendable moments. The one time at Cali Roots where you like showed up to save the day and stole the show, and then that time at Randy's, it was like 20 people on the balcony,
Dude, that
and
was
it
so
was
cool.
it was incredible. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye on that balcony that day.
No, that I mean, hats off to Cali Roots first off. Like Cali Roots, I think is really what you know blew out this, made the scene what it is.
Took it
I
next
think
level.
every other reggae festival tries to be what Cali Roots was,
Totally. Yeah.
how it started, this grassroots family feeling, everybody getting together to supply vibes to the greater good. And um I have so much respect for that whole family,
Yeah.
running that thing, and how it's turned out to be such a, a big event in the scene. And as far as playing Randy's place, that was actually, the catalyst to me starting and doing this solo career thing that I'm trying to do, just try to
Yeah.
do my own thing, and the opportunity that he presented to me with that, and the love that I felt and the vibes that came out of that, like gave me the confidence to be like, hey, maybe I can do a little bit more of this. Like it seems like people really want to see me do this stuff in this format, and it feels good to me because it was right after the pandemic, right?
Yes. Which
And
talk about
so,
that because a lot of bands rely on touring and merch.
yeah, oh
And
man, I
all of a
was,
sudden, overnight, that was gone for about a year or two.
yeah, it was a really scary time because, we went through the financial crash in 2008 with the band, and that didn't fucking touch us. Like it like boosted our ticket sales because people are like, fuck, I just want to go to a show. But now when, the next kind of big, global fucking hit happens is a pandemic and it shuts down all the venues, it's like, whoa, this is actually affecting us.
Yeah.
It's affecting everybody who is like us. And it was a very scary thing. And I kind of tripped out and I was like, dude, what am I going to do? I tried to play it cool, but like, I know internally I was like, because it felt like I would never play a show again.
And you had just basically started your family right around the
Yes,
same time.
exactly. You're right. And I was like moving, like I had just sold a house and looking, staying in a rent, my partner's rental, her family's rental, and kind of like feeling like, we're kind of like treading on, we shouldn't stay here too long. So I was like
Yeah.
trying to buy another house, and it was a lot of stress, but like what was one thing that our family found that was cool, or something that kind of was like this bright light, was me being able to go and play music outside on Pleasure Point or on West Cliff or in Capitola Village. And I have this little battery that I bought that's like this little battery generator.
Yeah. That thing's dope.
Plug in, yeah, I can plug in some music equipment, and discovered I had this little looper in one of my pedals. So I started looping stuff, kind of freaking around. But it was something that the whole family could do. And we go in the van, go park. My kid can play around and be in the van, or like go to the beach, and the family can hang and I can play. And, the response from people was amazing. Like people, like it was like people hadn't heard music in like 50 years, you
It's
know?
the most Santa Cruz vibe you can imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine, because people started traveling during the pandemic, so the coastal areas became very popular. Imagine you're from out of
Mhm.
town, you're a tourist, and you roll up to Santa Cruz, and you're a fan of reggae,
Yeah.
you're a fan of cannabis. All of a sudden, it's you on the corner,
Yeah.
like doing
Jamming.
your thing. Like what
Right.
people? I remember watching because you would live stream it,
Right.
and that's
Right.
when I got the idea too. Like, dude, we got to have Geoff. I think he's out here doing his
Right.
solo thing, and it just kind
Right.
of evolved organically.
Right. And so it was like this beautiful thing to do something with the family. We had our child was, I don't know, 1 or 2 years old, 3 years old. So, she had to be with us all the time. And the response you get from people walking by, and you get people just sitting and enjoying. Like they don't even know who I am. And I'm playing stuff that I don't, they're just loops of stuff and I'm just kind of riffing around. But hearing live music to people listening to live music was so needed, and watching people just kind of, see their shoulders drop, see the relaxation, you know, everybody kind of just feeling so relieved to hear something played that's live. And
You could see the effect firsthand.
yeah, like,
Yeah,
and like, it's like something like they had in drinking water, and I was to drink water,
that's awesome.
and so, and then shortly after, you guys invited me to come play at Randy's house,
Yeah,
and the whole vibes of, your whole friend group is super sweet and super
thanks, man.
rad. And feeling that, closeness with a group of people was really inspiring. And so it kind of, made me think like, hey man, I can do this.
Well, then you did a show with us, and it was an honor for all of us with Silver, who's our mutual
Yeah,
friend.
yeah,
And he just said, screw it, man. I don't care about these regulations. We're doing a show. And he got a
right.
barn in like Hollister or San Juan Bautista or
Yeah,
somewhere. So we're doing a mini reggae festival here at
I
this
know. Like,
barn.
how cool is
And
that?
then we were like, wait, Geoff is opening for us? Like, what the hell?
It's
This
so
is so
cool.
weird. And what I love about especially you guys is you guys you've done it all, right? You've grinded it out, you're local, you've been at the top, you've done festivals, you've headlined, you've done tours, but you're still like down to like jam with the homies
Because
and
it's all
like
about
you don't
music.
take yourself too
What it's all
seriously. But
about.
yeah, but not everybody feels that way. And
Uh-huh.
that's why I love you guys.
That means a lot. I wish people would think that way, because music is it's such a way to spread a message. It's such a way to heal the soul. It's such a way to escape. It's such a way, and like, I've written a song recently that's like all about that, like, kind of relationship between the creator of the music and the listener of the music. Like,
Yeah,
for both people, it is a very cathartic, healing thing. The person that writes the song could be writing about something that's really hurting them, or they have these issues, or like whatever it is, and they're getting some therapy by putting it out and putting it to music and singing it. And then
yeah,
when someone hears it, they're relating to that same message, but associating it to something in their life, and it's helping them feel better or work through, or whatever it is. And it's like this lossless transfer of energy that's highly efficient, like, it's beautiful. And
that's
I
so
think that's
awesome.
the essence of music.
So you got through, and we're so grateful to have you in the greater community. Me personally, just as a friend, but then in the greater community, you and the other guys in your band have contributed so much, and we're so
Mm,
like, I wish really more people would recognize, and a lot of them do. But it wouldn't be where there'd be no Cali Roots, there'd be no these other younger bands without your guys' contribution. You guys, like Stupid Pepper, you really helped. Carry like. I used to run track, and I was on the 4x4, but the 4x1, you know, every handoff of the baton is crucial. And you see,
mhm,
especially in music, there's a lot of egos, there's a lot of backstabbing, there's a lot of
mm,
greed and just envy and drama. And
mm.
you guys have just kept it solid all these years, and everybody loves you. And you can't say that about every band and every artist. you
That
know,
means a lot. I mean, like, we're just trying to do our thing, and like I say, like, it's all about the energy transfer to everything. And like, if
yeah,
you're gonna get like all weird about something, and then that's you're missing the point. you know. But yeah, I can see how, egos get involved, feelings can get hurt when you see success from somebody else, and you interpret it as like, an attack or something like that.
right.
I've probably felt those feelings
We're
too.
all human. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, totally.
Um,
You got through the challenging time of the pandemic. You kind of
mhm.
discovered the solo venture.
Yeah.
And then right as the band was getting back together and building momentum again and going on tour, and we talked about this beforehand, so I got your permission, but tell us,
Yeah.
you had a bit of a health scare last year,
Yeah.
and people were concerned. Obviously we have mutual friends and musicians, and people were like, is he okay? Like, what's going on? And so can you just kind of tell everybody what, the health scare you had, and what's the latest with that, and how you were able to kind of recover from that?
Yeah, yeah. It's not really a health scare. Like, it probably seemed like a scare because I was like, didn't really say anything much about it and just kind of fell off the map for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really it's skin issues. So ever since I was a child, I've had eczema,
Okay.
which if you don't know what it is, it's like a kind of hereditary autoimmune thing where your skin kind of attacks itself and it gets really itchy. And it usually, appears in this part of your elbow and that part of your leg, and it generally goes away, in adolescence. But it's part of the same gene that has to do with asthma, allergies, eczema. Like if you have either one of those, you probably are prone to get the other two. Or I have all three. I'm just, blessed with these things. But so in order to combat it, doctors gave you steroid cream.
Mm,
And so throughout my life, up until December of 2023, I've been taking steroid cream. And leading up to that December of 2023, I'd been taking more and more, and really putting it on a lot and not really getting much benefit from it, and kind of some weird side effects. And like,
mm,
I'm like questioning, like, is this the only way? And I was pretty miserable for a few years. And then I stopped taking the cream. And so I 100% cold turkey stopped putting steroid cream on my skin, and my skin flipped out. And so I
mm.
did a bunch of research, like my whole body, head to toe. You can probably tell right now, my face is all red and it's still going through it, but it's basically a withdrawal from the steroid.
Oh,
They call
wow.
it TSW, topical steroid withdrawal. And it's this kind of condition that mainstream medicine doesn't really acknowledge. I
Mm,
don't know. It's whether it's because they don't want to say that they've been putting you on drugs and they kind of fucked you up without telling you, or they just don't know, or it's like a
mm.
mixture of things. But it's like definitely a thing. If you Google it, TSW, you'll see all kinds of
Yeah.
YouTube channels on it and people going through exactly what I'm going through. You're basically, it's like withdrawing from any other drug, whether it's alcohol
Wow.
or, heroin or something. Your body gets dependent on it in a way, and when you take it
Mm.
away, it
You have a
it
reaction.
yeah, it freaks out. So my putting it on takes your skin and like dumbs down the natural responses and the natural way of cleansing itself or protecting itself. And so when you don't have that steroid, the skin is kind of left vulnerable, and so it doesn't build these sort of natural ways of being. And so I've slowly had to rebuild that mechanism of the skin, and your skin takes 6 weeks to like turn over. So every 6 weeks you have pretty much a new set of skin. And so it's a long time of this kind of waiting for my body to get back into its normal function. And so for a long time, so it was December of 2023, I stopped. And then like the first 2 or 3 months, 4 months of that year of 2024 were pretty hell.
Mm.
Itching really bad, super inflamed, super flaky, like wanting to itch all the way to my bones. And when I couldn't itch anymore, the only reason why I didn't want to itch is because it hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Like nights were terrible. It was awful.
I'm
It really
sorry.
was pretty bad, but that's why I had to take the time off. There was no way I could like, go on the road and be in that
We'll
condition.
talk about how, besides the pain and the nuisance of it all, talk about just how it affected your playing and how, like, basically, if that's your livelihood, all of a sudden your hands aren't functioning properly or you can't focus.
Yeah, or
Like,
I mean, I couldn't even think. Yeah, I had to take a break from everything. I mean, I had to change my diet
yeah,
considerably. I had to just change my whole lifestyle. Um, and just concentrate on the health. And like there was basically no other area to focus on other than trying to heal, because it was so uncomfortable and so, I mean, mentally it took a toll, because every night you're like, dude, how come, wow, I just need to stop itching, please, please.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
relentless. I'm still itchy, but it's way less than it was. It's covering way less of my body, but it's head to toe. Every little piece of skin you got is an inflamed, itchy mess. And
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about that, and you have to, deal with that as a friend. I
yeah,
mean, that's hard to hear. I'm sorry, so sorry. It sounds like you have made some progress, so that's
yeah,
good. And
yeah,
I'm sure that there's someone listening that has something similar that maybe they've dealt with. I think a lot of times, via social media, or you think, oh, rock stars aren't real people. They don't have problems. And meanwhile, you're probably paying, going on tours and playing shows in pain, and people didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's like I would have to lug around. Like before I got off the steroids, I was lugging around a bunch of like big things of steroids, and now I mean, the hard part now going on the road is eating clean. So I've had to cut out dairy and gluten and sugars. I've recently, since I've been feeling better, I've been like, oh man, burritos thing taste pretty good. Like I've been kind of,
Slack it a little bit.
gummy
Yeah.
bears are pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
So I'm slipping because I can, I'm comfortable. But when I was really in the throes of it, like I was eating super clean, really taking care of my whole body, which, and I kept telling myself the whole time is like, this is like my body, you know, smacking me in the face, going, wake up,
Yeah.
pay attention to this thing, pay attention to your body.
Yeah.
Because, 20 years of touring, drinking, smoking, eating out shitty every night, waking
Yeah.
up late, like it takes a toll.
I
And
can relate, not to the level that you have as far as the touring, but I have toured
yeah,
and been a part of festivals. And yeah, from
yeah,
about 25 to 35 was in that mode of
right.
just, and then the older you get, the your metabolism slows down as well. So all those
Mhm.
things working against you. And
Yeah,
I'll shout out to the stick figure guys because I'll give credit to like K Bong and Tommy and some of those guys. They really take care of themselves on the road. I
yeah,
went on tour with those guys and they're eating healthy, doing
right,
yoga. Like you have to.
right. You
And I
have
think that's the next. I'm excited to see this next era for you guys and for the other bands, that having kids now, taking better care of their health. It's a
yeah, yeah,
different kind of party on
right.
the bus
Yeah. Oh,
than it
it's
was
not
in
really a
our
party.
20s.
It's more, yeah, it's very
Everybody
quiet.
has their own bus and
Yeah.
goes to bed early and it's different. But it's beautiful that that we're still able to do it because not everybody made it this far, not everybody made it in the first place, and then we all unfortunately have sad stories of friends that maybe gave into their addictions or
Hmm.
DUIs or car crashes or
Hmm.
got shot or whatever the case may be. We all have homies from back home or from the scene that just didn't make it, and so to
Right.
be able to enter into this era where you're being healthier, being a dad, being a partner, what a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. It's like I said, like going through it sucked, but it was definitely silver lining is I take care of myself better now. It's just a rough reality check that I needed.
Hard way to learn a lesson.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
I didn't take and I take it full on. Like I'm totally excited to be absorbing that lesson and learning from it because it's only going to help me in the long run. It's going to only make me a better dad,
Yeah.
better family person, and 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 really, it's really gotten me to focus on what my priorities and values are. Like for a long time, drinking and partying, you kind of like put those values or the things that mean most to you kind of aside to
Yeah.
show up for, the party or to be this person that you think other people want you to be. But the time off kind of really helped me focus on what I value the most, what I want out of life the most, what I care about the most, which is my family, and 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 getting after that, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's beautifully
yeah,
said. Knowing we could go on and on, but we covered quite the gamut of information in your story, and it's been awesome to hear and learn more. What is next with your new passion project, your solo project, and
yeah,
then what's next for the band?
yeah,
And then we'll kind of end with that.
sure, sure. So next for the Jeff Weers project is I'm putting out an acoustic album. So 2022, I went on tour with Eric Rachmani. He does a
Shout out to Eric.
yeah, shout out to Eric to Revolution.
He's
Oh
ridiculous.
boy. Um, but he does like this acoustic run in the fall or in the winter. And so I was lucky enough to open for him
That's right.
in
That's right.
2022. And so we did the West Coast and I can't remember how many shows, maybe 8, 10 shows. And I recorded every single one. And so I've picked and choose through those shows the best, versions of the songs of the sets that I did, and I'm putting it out as a,
Awesome.
a little live record, kind of showing what I do. It's basically me looping like I would do on the street when, before you had me at Randy's and what I was doing at Randy's.
Yeah.
And I've just had these recordings in my hard drive for quite a while, and I've I just put this out. They're just like versions of expendable songs, a
Yeah.
couple versions of my own tunes that I've released. Um, And then yeah, so I'm going to release that hopefully in March. So the first single's dropping on Friday, the 7th. And then I'm
Okay.
gonna have another single come out. I
Well,
think
this is good timing then for this
yeah, yeah,
podcast to come
yeah.
out.
Yeah. And then the next single's coming out the 21st, and then the whole record's coming out March 7th. So I'm excited to put that out. And then I have a bunch of other tunes that have been sitting around on my hard drive. I'm basically taking stuff out of the archives, stuff that just doesn't make it to Expendables land, and that's just kind of sitting around that
Yeah, I
that
love it.
I'm proud of.
Yeah,
And since I'm more proficient here in the studio, in my home little studio thing, and I love to fiddle with sounds. And so I'm kind of doing that with these, archived little beats and stuff, trying to collab with other artists. And I just want to put out music, and and ex get the world to know me a little bit more on an individual level, and sing songs that I can, that relate to me, produce them the way I want to produce them with nobody else. Like I
right.
love the guys, like that's
Yeah,
all good, but there's something to be said about having control of everything,
totally.
an artist, and choosing the way you want the song to go, what the tones are,
Yep.
how you want it mixed, and not have anybody else having an influence on that. It's freeing and satisfying. And so I have a lot of stuff that I just want to keep putting out. So
Well, I'm super happy for you and excited to hear this new project. Obviously, I've heard a lot of it in person, but I'm excited to hear it recorded and get it out there and do everything I can to share it and promote it. What is next for the band?
the band, we are currently writing a record too. So we're like, what do we have? We have like 5 songs that are like kind of close to being almost finished. There's a handful more that are in the oven. And then like we're kind of doing batches, like 5 song batches every month or two, and trying to compile a bunch of songs together. And then hopefully we can get like, 15, 20 songs, 30 songs if we're fucking jamming hard, um, all ready, like album ready, and then choose, out of those, glean out the ones that are most meaningful to us, the ones that
Hmm.
sound the best or whatever it is, and put out a record.
So, well,
Yeah,
people are excited and ready for it.
yeah,
And a couple things. One, um, like you said about wanting to kind of do your own thing. And that's for me, that's going to be this project that I'm doing now, this podcast. And I wanted to wait till I had the studio and everything perfect. And I said, you know what, let's just get started.
yeah,
I
right.
was like, I interviewed Wes years ago in a studio, and I was doing like lives on Instagram during the pandemic, which was fun,
Hmm.
but that's like the worst format to do an interview. And so I thought, well, until I have the equipment in the studio, I'm just going to do it on Zoom. And just this year, I said, I'm just going to start. And so I'm super grateful
Perfect.
that you honor me with your presence today. And
Yeah,
I definitely want to jam together. And when I do get a studio, would love to do this again in person.
let's do it.
Where can everybody find you? And what's the next? You talked about your projects, but where can we find you? How can we support you?
You can find me on Geoff Weers Music Instagram. That's basically the main thing that I use. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm not on, Twitter X or anything. So when the records drop or when the singles come out, Spotify, all the digital platforms you'll be able to find me on. But yeah, Geoff Weers Music, at Geoff Weers Music on Instagram is kind of my main thing. So you can reach me there. I'm usually pretty present and love to answer DMs, love to hear comments, questions, all kinds of stuff. And then at the Expendables, we're always kind of on in and out of that one too, if you want to hit up the band.
Awesome.
But if you got Expendables questions, by me, all means, hit me up on my personal one. I'm totally down to
Cool.
talk Expendables, talk Jeff Weir's, whatever it is.
Yeah, Geoff, thank you so much for your time, man. All the best to your family and to the rest of the guys in the band. I'm excited to see what the band does, excited to see what you do personally, and I'm looking forward to more collaboration in 2025. Thank you so much for your
Oh,
time.
beautiful. Thank you so much,
All
Jordan.
right, brother. Take care.
Peace.